Hi everybody, welcome back to Small Caliber Arms Review. I'm Richard. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about smokeless powder versus black powder and a little bit about cowboy ammo. Now, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you'll know that I've recently got into the antique firearms craze. I really love these old guns. I think they are so much cooler than some of the modern stuff. Even the modern reproductions of the old firearms, I think the antique ones are even better. They've got a story behind them. They've got class and style and everything that you just don't get with the reproductions of them. Don't get me wrong, I like the reproductions, and one of the things I really like about the reproductions is that it is safe to fire smokeless ammo in them. Is it safe to fire smokeless ammo in my 1906 1873 Winchester? Well, it's not marked as being safe for smokeless ammo. But there have been plenty of people out there who have loaded smokeless ammo cartridges for their antique firearms with completely satisfactory results. No damage to the firearms, no damage to themselves. When I did this video on the Hopkins and Allen several years ago, I did not know if this was a smokeless powder era or a black powder era firearm. So to be safe, I figured I would fire black powder ammo in there. And I was able to find a vintage box of 32 Smith & Wesson shorts. Now, out of the 10 rounds I fired through it, only 5 of them went off because they are actually 100 and who knows how many years old. But I figured that would be the safest route to go. Now, this firearm was not top quality back in the day, and I would not really trust it to smokeless powder. Now, I've recently picked up a couple other 32 Smith & Wessons that are also black powder era firearms. This is an Ivor Johnson safety hammerless, also in 32 Smith & Wesson. And according to my Ivor Johnson book there, it's probably a black powder firearm. Is it safe to fire smokeless in it? I don't know, but I can load 32 Smith & Wesson shorts in black powder now. I also picked up a Smith & Wesson top break that is 32 Smith & Wesson, and I'm pretty sure that this is also a black powder era firearm, so I can load rounds for it. There's a lot of debate on whether or not it's safe or not. I watch a channel called Everything Black Powder, and Jake does a fantastic job of doing a lot of experimentation with smokeless and black powder, mostly black powder. Of course, that's the name of his channel. But he did a video not too long ago, it's called What Happened to That Remington, where he was doing smokeless powder in it. Now, it's a cap and ball revolver, so it wasn't a cartridge revolver. And I think he loaded like 5.5 grains of smokeless powder in there, and everything functioned fine. He bumped it up to 6.5 grains, just 1 grain more, and it destroyed the firearm. Luckily, it was only the firearm and not him. So it's easy to make a mistake with smokeless powder. With the black powder, you fill the case up. You fill the cartridge completely up, and you actually have to compress it. And that's the way those cartridges work. When you get into, like, this is a 32-20, the 32 is the caliber, 20 is 20 grains of black powder. So your load data is already there. 44-40, same thing, 44 caliber bullet, 40 grains of black powder, 38-40, all those things were like that. Now, Winchester did not develop their first smokeless powder, at least their civilian or commercially available smokeless powder, till 1894. And the 1894 Winchester come out, it was in 30-30. Now, they did make it in other calibers too, and those other calibers are still black powder, but the 30-30 was originally made as a smokeless powder round, and it has never been a black powder round. I mean, you could load black powder in it, and you'd probably be just absolutely fine, because the black powder produces a lot lower pressures than smokeless powder does. So the 30-30 being a smokeless powder gun, it's perfectly fine to fire smokeless powder in it as long as the condition of your gun allows it. You can get a gun that looks good, that's in poor condition, and fire the proper ammo in it, and still you could have a problem. Also, the 32 Special was a round that was developed as smokeless powder, same year, 1894, but was also they changed the twist rate in a little bit so that people that were loading black powder rounds back in that day could load black powder in it or smokeless powder in it, and it would function, I guess, fine with both of them. At least this is what I found in my research. Doing more research, it is still unclear whether or not it's safe. Yes, there have been a lot of people who have fired smokeless powder in their antique firearms and been just fine, but the load data is very critical because you don't want to produce pressures that will exceed what the black powder pressures were in there. Another channel I watch quite a bit of is the S.C.A.R, and Mark does a couple videos where he's talking about smokeless powder in an old Winchester and the difference between black powder and smokeless powder. There are tons of videos on YouTube about the differences in them and whether or not it's safe, and I'm not offering you any new information really. It's just what I decided I'm going to do. Buffalo Bore Ammunition and Buffalo Bore Outdoors also does a video where he's pretty much saying don't fire the modern stuff in your smokeless or in your black powder firearm. HSM is a producer of Cowboy ammunition, Black Hills ammunition. There's several of these companies that make Cowboy ammo, and the Cowboy ammo is made for people who shoot cowboy action shooting or SAS. And there's certain restrictions on some of that stuff, like you can't fire jacketed rounds in there because they don't want those jackets hitting the steel targets and coming back and hitting anybody in the crowd. A lot of people that shoot cowboy action shooting use modern firearms. When I did it, I shot modern firearms, Ruger Vaqueros, a Rossi 92, and a Stoeger coach gun. All four of my guns are modern, so I know they will handle modern ammunition, not a problem. But it's the people that shoot the antique stuff, they're the ones that have to be careful. I have some antique firearms, I have to be careful if I want to use smokeless ammo in there. Now, there's a benefit to smokeless ammo. First of all, it's widely available. Second of all, cleanup is so much nicer with smokeless ammo. In fact, you can neglect a little bit. You shouldn't, but you can neglect cleaning your smokeless powder ammo because that unburnt powder that's left in the barrel is not corrosive like the black powder is. And black powder, a lot of people will say it's not that it's corrosive, it's that it's hygroscopic and it attracts moisture and that starts eating away your barrel. Everything I've read and my limited knowledge of metallurgy says it's the sulfur burning is what causes the deterioration of the barrel and action and everything if it gets in there. There's a big debate on that too, just as big as there is with the smokeless versus black powder ammo. But Buffalo Bore says don't do it. S.C.A.R says you can do it, and it is true, you can do it. But you have to make your own decisions. You have to find good, reliable data that says this is the charge that I'm going to put in my rounds. You have to be extremely careful that you don't overcharge with smokeless powder because it is possible to overcharge with smokeless powder because the amount you're going to use is so much smaller than the volume of the case. You can't overcharge the black powder. You can undercharge the black powder, and that's another debate. There's so many debates in this whole smokeless black powder thing. People will say if you undercharge it and you leave an air gap in there that it can detonate. I don't know. I've seen videos where people have completely filled up a barrel with black powder and fired it and nothing happens. I've seen videos where people undercharge it, purposely leave a gap in there, an air gap in there, and nothing happens. But I'm not telling you either way. Just follow the best practices. I really like the antique firearms. Like I said, I think they're so much cooler than the modern ones, even if they are an exact reproduction of it. But yeah, I'm not clearing anything up in this video. It's just, I did this video a couple weeks ago, and I felt that the information I provided in there was just as unclear, if not worse, than the information I'm putting in this one. So if you want to fire smokeless in your antique firearm, first thing you need to do is make sure it is capable of handling it. Make sure the action is capable of handling it. The 1873 is one of the weaker actions of the Winchester firearms. It's a toggle link action that's inside here. When you get the 1894, they made better steel for their barrels for the 30-30, plus the action is much stronger. Some of these old pistols like this, the old revolvers, some of the top brakes are not the strongest action, not as strong as a solid frame. But again, you have to make your own decisions on this kind of stuff. I'm going to continue to load black powder for this and these little pistols I got here. I may, at some point in the future, switch over to some smokeless powder because, like I said, cleanup is a lot nicer with smokeless powder. Anyways, if you could reach up here and hit this video, check out some of my other videos, hit the little round one down here to subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching Small Caliber Arms Review.